From tailored bodices with extra fabric and padding to the rigid corsets that shaped this very iconic look, I'll explore how this exaggerated style wasn't just about aesthetics, but also reflected the cultural values and social expectations of the time. So let's step back in time and take a closer look. Hi, my name is Raquel, and I want to welcome you to my channel, where today I will be diving into a fascinating piece of Edwardian fashion history, the Pouter Pigeon look. So, do you ever wonder how Edwardian women achieved that very dramatic look of a full chest silhouette with a perfectly cinched waist? Well, I've got all the details. The Pouter Pigeon look was a hallmark of Edwardian fashion. It showcased the era's obsession with a highly feminine, exaggerated silhouette. It was characterized by a full, rounded chest, often resembling a pigeon's puffed out breast, and a narrow, tightly cinched waist. This look was a deliberate fashion statement that signified both elegance and status. This look was achieved through the use of tailored bodices with extra fabric, padding, and intricate gathers, creating a voluminous effect around the chest. Dressmakers of the time employed layers of fine fabrics such as silks, lace, and even muslin to craft this rounded shape, often adding details like pleating, ruffles, even draping to enhance the dramatic powder effect. These voluminous bodices, paired with skirts that flared below the waist, drew attention to this exaggerated proportion. However, the corsets were the real stars in achieving this look. They were known as Edwardian S-bend corsets, and as I mentioned in previous videos, they were known by many names. In fact, the S-bend corset is what modern historians have termed or have coined this term. These corsets included still boning, often extending past the hips, which restricted movement and cinched the waist in, creating this exaggerated hourglass effect. The resulting silhouette made the wearer appear almost doll-like, with an emphasized bust line and a sharply defined waist. This wasn't a time when women were cinching their waists. This was a time where the silhouette added to that accentuated waist, meaning because of this powder effect above the waist and the bell-shaped dresses from the waist down emphasized this very narrow waistline. It wasn't that the corsets were being tightly cinched. So let's bust that myth.
And I'm going to dispel that myth right now by explaining how the Edwardian hourglass shape was achieved without extreme waist cinching. It wasn't about squeezing the waist into impossibly small proportions. Okay, wait, stop the video. I should mention something here. Some, if not most, of the photos you're looking at have been photo edited. Yep, even back then people were retouching pictures. It turns out, we humans have always been just as vain as we are now. Maybe even more. But let's set that aside for a moment. What I really want to look at here is the power of design and illusion, creating that tiny waist effect, not some old school Photoshop magic. Anyways, let's continue on. It wasn't about squeezing the waist into impossibly small proportions, but rather about using clever design elements like padding, structured garments, and strategic shaping to create the illusion of a tiny waist and fuller curves. The S-bend corset, also known as the straight front corset, played a key role. Instead of compressing the waist tightly, this corset pushed the hips backwards and the chest forwards, creating a dynamic S-shape posture. The waist appeared smaller by contrast, and that was thanks to the exaggerated curvature created by this design. Bust improvers, which were padding worn under the bodice, or the use of extra fabric with pleats and gathers, further enhanced and created the illusion, lending to the pouter pigeon look by making the chest look fuller. For the lower body, women often wore hip pads or the hip form girdle. This added volume to the hips and the backside, helping to balance the proportions and emphasize the waist without extreme constriction. To further enhance this, the waist front distender was used. This helped to push the bust outward and further accentuated the hourglass silhouette. Bell-shaped skirts flaring out from the hips also helped to emphasize this contrast, and it gave this silhouette the appearance of a much smaller waist. I really wanted to come on here and drive a point home because I don't believe I did it very well in the video, and that is to explain that the myth of the extreme waist cinching during the Edwardian time likely stems from a misunderstanding of corsetry's role. The Edwardian look was more about creating soft curves and balanced proportions with padding, tailoring, and posture manipulation rather than physical restriction. Fashion during this time focused on illusion and clever fashion design rather than severe body modification. And this is the technique that was used by Edwardian women to achieve this iconic silhouette. So, this fashion style wasn't just about beauty. It was deeply rooted in the social and cultural values of the time. The exaggerated pouter pigeon shape symbolized wealth and leisure. Women who dressed in this manner didn't need to engage in manual labor, and their clothing made it very clear. The bodices were so well structured and the corsets so rigid that the ability to move freely or perform any kind of physical work was, to some great degree, diminished. The exaggerated silhouette, particularly the voluminous chest and tightly cinched waist, marked a clear division between women of privilege and the working class woman, whose clothing was far more functional and less restrictive. Moreover, the pouter pigeon look reinforced traditional gender roles of the Edwardian era. It did so by enhancing feminine curves and creating a highly decorative, almost fragile appearance. The silhouette emphasized women as objects of beauty rather than active participants in public life. The tailored bodice with the extra fabric and intricate gathers, along with the structured corsets, signaled wealth and status, while simultaneously reinforcing the notion of femininity as delicate and ornamental. Yet, the persistence of this trend throughout the Edwardian era highlights how fashion was intertwined with broader social expectations, and that despite its impracticality, the pouter pigeon look remained wildly popular among upper-class women who could afford to prioritize aesthetic over function. But it wasn't until World War I, when women began taking on a more active role in society, that such restrictive fashion started to fade, making way for more practical, less exaggerated clothing. And so the pouter pigeon look serves as a reflection of Edwardian society's complex relationship with fashion, femininity, and social class. It exemplified the ways in which clothing not only shaped the body, but also communicated power. And this is a theme I constantly touch upon when discussing Edwardian fashion. It was also a symbol of status, and it represented cultural values, all while emphasizing the divide between those who lived lives of leisure and those who engaged in physical work.
The end. So thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed learning these very small facts about the pouter pigeon look during the Edwardian era and its impact on fashion and society of the time. Don't forget to check out my other videos where I share more short, fun historical facts about the Edwardian era. And if you want to keep diving into the world of historical fashion with me, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell button so you don't miss any updates. See you next time. Thanks for being here.